Before, after,
They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Ryan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Good to see you here.
Yeah.
For one of our formats where we see the movie the night before and meet up in the morning.
That's right.
To talk about it. It's a great way to spend the morning.
Yep.
How are you doing?
I'm still waking up.
Okay. Because what? It's only 11:30.
Well, it was Halloween last night, so I stayed up a little later than usual.
Yeah. Did you watch any more horror films after we watched our horror film?
I watched a couple episodes of the Haunting at Hill House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to talk to you about that. I was wondering if we should do an episode on it. I finished it a few days ago.
Did you like it?
Yes.
Good.
I liked it more by the end.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of feeling the same way. Like, it's starting to get movement. I'm like halfway through.
Right.
I'm into it.
But that's for another day.
It is.
Okay, well, I mean, should we get should we play the music here? Play the trailer for what we went and saw, since it's so highly anticipated.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, we went and saw the new Halloween.
Testing 1, 2, 3. We're on.
We're here to investigate a patient that killed 3 innocent teenagers on a Halloween in 1978. He was shot by his own psychiatrist and taken into custody that night, and has spent the last 40 years in captivity. Hello, Michael. I have something you might like to see.
Everyone in my family turns into a nutcase this time of year. Yeah, I mean, your grandmother is Laurie Strode. She was almost murdered.
Wasn't it her brother who murdered all those babysitters?
No, it was not her brother. That's something that people made up.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
How exciting.
How would you summarize it?
It's like Halloween, except again.
Yeah. Michael Myers is back, and so is Laurie Strode. No, there's way much more to it.
Yeah,
we can give an actual summary.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay, so, well, I think you preface this by saying that all of the sequels to the original 78 Halloween are wiped away.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist anymore. So having said that, after the events of the first Halloween movie in 1978, it's now 40 years later, and Michael Myers was apprehended after the end of the first movie and has been in insane asylum, hospital, whatever you want to call it, state hospital, for the last 40 years. And conversely, what's her name? Laurie Strode has been kind of in her own personal prison.
Yes.
For 40 years, awaiting the time when Michael might theoretically get out again.
Yeah.
And sort of preparing. She spent her whole life preparing for that moment.
A couple of ended marriages, and along the way had a daughter who had a daughter.
That's right. And so, I mean, God, really, is there much more to say about the summarizing that? I mean, it's sort of that's the setup.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we could just say it's also like it's a versus film.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Which I was glad it delivered on. One of those like, all right, Laurie Strode's back, Michael Myers is back. They're gonna versus. You know.
Yeah. But it is. I guess if you haven't seen the first Halloween, can you see this by itself?
I'm sure people have, of course. I mean,
right? Like,
and they probably like it better than the original.
It seems like it. I mean, it's people are
yeah, man.
really
the original's
into it.
old now, you know.
Well, and to be fair, I think we both rewatched the original.
Yeah,
and I just think it's okay. Like, I don't think it's anything special. There's cool stuff in it, but as a movie, I was saying to you.
And I did want to talk more about this, and I figured
Okay.
out, I think, what was kind of important for me to bring up, because I hear what you're saying, and like I do kind of too watch it from that lens, where as far as just like what's happening in the movie, I can kind of go like, yeah, okay, you know, seen it before, but like why I still think is great and is totally fine for, you know, I totally get it when people say it's their favorite horror film and why it is as big as it is. It's like so beyond just kind of what happens in the movie. It's what's in every frame of the film. There's a tone, there's a mood that's so particular and, you know, and I guess pretty inimitable in that, you know, even though we say it had its all, you know, it's copycats, Friday the 13th ripped off, everything ripped off from it. There's something very, very, I don't know, very...
Well,
what do you think?
It's got iconography that really, really sits well and like lingers with you. So even though I think the movie, if you're just looking at it as objectively as you can as a movie by itself, I don't think it's great. But there are thematic things and visual things in it that I think play on a lot of our sort of inner and darker like fears that stick with you, and it's almost like in a way you're filling in the blanks that the movie may lack but are suggesting, and then because there's such strong aspects or you know, visuals or whatever the thing is, they carry over and sort of linger with you, and you turn that into something bigger than the movie itself was actually showing. And that's pretty amazing. And, you know, to accomplish that is an exceptional thing.
Right. And then just the music cues coming up.
That's
just
right.
Like
so it's little
triggers
things
all
like
that.
right? There are visuals of just like the big dude in a mask. Like that's just going to stick with you. It is so eerie. And it's sort of, I think that's why the franchise, you know, went on to be such a sort of constant and iconic thing, is because those images are really, really strong.
Totally. Yeah. Well, like, I guess what an example of what more I was saying was like, it was, they were just streaming it for free for 24 hours on Shudder yesterday for Halloween. And that's kind of reminds me of like how, you know, they do that with the Christmas Story or, you know, Miracle on 34 or whatever. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Where it's when something's streamed 24 hours like that, you can see how it's something it's less about just like, you know, again, following the story, following the characters, but it's more like, I just want Halloween happening at me. Like it in itself has, as again, such a specific color and feel that is so unique and massive. And like what you were saying, just strikes a chord with people that I get why this very like singular, or why this single independent film like was big enough to launch 12 other films now or whatever.
I counted it. I think we're at 8 now.
Yeah,
Something
a lot.
Like that. Yeah, it is a lot. But yeah, when something becomes what would you call that, kind of an essential like aspect of a holiday, you know they've done something right. It's like you can't have Halloween in a lot of ways without the Halloween franchise.
It's called Halloween.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty impressive, and you know it's stood the test of time, so to speak.
So knowing that okay, so cool. You can acknowledge that and see why it is.
Definitely can acknowledge that. I think I was just saying, if we were going to review the original Halloween in isolation, I would have a lot to be like, this doesn't work for me.
Right. I see, and I think I would like agree with those things maybe, but at the same time be like, but none of that matters because.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I wanted to watch it, so that alone says something about it, right?
Yeah. So if those were your feelings about that one, what were your feelings about this new one? As far as how would you rate it? How would you tell Tim Aslin to view it?
I'm a little torn, actually, because I'm right on the edge of saying buy it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I would buy it. But having said that, so that kind of means like I would do what I did, which is spend $16 to see it in the theater.
Right, which we should own a copy of it at that point.
I mean, really?
Like, if you pay that,
sheesh,
here's your digital download code.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was kind of on the same
So
thing.
I say rent it. I say rent it. Spend the money to see it once.
Yes.
It's worth that, for sure.
That's that as well as my confident rating, which I would tell myself. But why I was on the cusp of saying buy it was because I could see it kind of growing on me over the years because it's such a, like, just as a slasher movie, it was so well done. I think as a Halloween sequel, like, I can't think of really how to do it better. And, it's sort of bigger sense. So, like, once it sort of becomes I can look back and point at a very, like, satisfying, well done 2018 slasher film that stars Jamie Lee Curtis. I could see me wanting it, on the shelf and sort of being down for, oh yeah, more Halloween, more Michael Myers, in that.
Well, and that makes me think of sort of an interesting point in that this movie and I think the original have something about them where it's like, it's a movie that around Halloween, if you have people over, it's kind of the movie, and I think this is true in my life at least, for the original, it's a movie that people just go, oh, we're going to put that on. It's just going to be on in the background. We don't even need the sound. We just put it on.
Oh, but you should have the sound.
I mean, I agree, but I've been to plenty of parties where it's just like, yeah, Halloween's just playing because it's Halloween and that's the movie you play. And I think this new one can do that just as well. Mm-hmm. Like it can serve that purpose. Like it's just sort of an essential part of the atmosphere of Halloween, and it can just live there. So in that sense, buy it so that you can do that if you have a Halloween party.
Well, I don't know. I kind of disagree because what I was saying, like, as far as it could really grow on me as a modern slasher film, like, I don't see it being more than that, though. Like, what I was saying about the original, what it did, that's so inimitable and pure and original and just having a feel and a tone, that was like, they did a really good job hitting a kind of tone. But as far as whatever that is, that that feel of which it's coming from, I don't know how, the thing, the magic that's there in the original Halloween, I think that still has it on, that is never going to be replicated or duplicated. Sure. That's like, I don't know. I still see you put on the original. Yeah. If you want just like that purest form of Halloween energy coming at you, because this really was just like a good sequel.
Right. No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, should we jump into what worked?
Yeah.
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
What did you like about the new Halloween, Tim?
I actually have quite a lot of things. In really broad strokes, I think they did a great job of taking things that worked from the original and either kind of not redoing them, but sort of presenting the tone of them and just nods. It's full of nods to the original. Even the opening credits, like where it's instead of, in the original opening credits, it's just a pumpkin and the credits roll next to it, or jack-o'-lantern. In this one, it's a rotted one that in reverse grows back into
that was
its
so
original
neat.
state. And I'd love that. I mean, it's just great. So immediately I'm like on board. But, the other thing that I really liked about the original, and I think this is, I think this is true in my life at least, for the original, But, you know, the standard stuff, it looks awesome. It's filmed great. Like, the tone, the coloring, all of that stuff. Like, even they filmed... the original was filmed mostly in Pasadena, right?
Yeah.
Which is in California. This was filmed in... What did we say? South Carolina?
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
I think that's right.
That was my guess.
I'm sure I could look it up. But actually going to a you know... not a set, you know what I mean? Like, not trying to match a suburban or an Illinois neighborhood, and actually going to a place that has the same sort of, you know, landscape and trees and all that stuff.
Great
like,
setting casting.
So
Absolutely.
good. It makes me like, because I want to film this particular horror film that I'm working on, and I need woods. And this movie has like the style of woods that I want. You don't find that style of woods in California, or at least not Southern California. So it just like puts you in the right place right away.
Well, yeah, what else did you mean as far as things from the original that this one was
soundscape, music, like all of that stuff. Like even the little like, I think it's about a third of the way through, or maybe a quarter of the way through, when Michael's already out and he's starting to go through the neighborhood and kill people, and you get like one of those first like bring noises, which is so 1978, like cheesy synth sort of like scare sound. And like it just brought me joy when it like pops up, because it almost doesn't fit in this movie, right? Because this is a modern movie in all respects, and then you get this very nostalgic, like almost out of place noise, but it's perfect. It's exactly what you want in this.
Michael Myers is old now too,
That's right.
So it's like, hey, but he's still Michael Myers, so we're still gonna do it this way.
Yeah,
I like I mean, you got me thinking about something that worked for me in this, as far as when you're doing a reboot or a sequel or a many years later thing, like we've had so many of.
Oh yeah.
It's, you know, you're looking toward the original and seeing all like, what do we do and not do? Like, what is true to this without sort of doing it directly?
Right.
So you could say like the new Star Wars films, they just like do it exactly, you know, these sort of things. Like, well, no, that's not what makes Star Wars Star Wars. They don't have to go through they don't have to go through these exact beats every time.
That's right. There's sort of a fine line, or maybe not so fine sometimes, between capturing the essence of a thing versus just a literal rehash.
Yeah,
of it.
and so it works when you can get more abstract with sort of what was working about the original. So like an example of that I thought that I picked up on that really made this one work for me, that worked about the original, was the level in which we got to know everyone who was killed. It felt like just enough where you really were able to empathize with them. They felt like real people enough, you know, you kind of became friends with them. That felt like something that was matched in this one that was done well in the original.
I agree. I remember thinking that in particular with the cop, the sheriff officer.
Officer Sheriff?
Yeah, Officer Sheriff. He's been around
Will
forever.
Patton as Frank Hawkins.
That's right. So Hawkins, you get just enough backstory with him to feel like we give a shit about him. It's very slight. It's just he's like, oh yeah, did you know he was the arresting officer?
And you see it in his eyes, like the weight of remembering that night.
And that's all you need with him. Then you know he's a part of this story. And I think that's really good writing. It's taking a character that can be very kind of two-dimensional and whatever, just the town cop, and just giving him that one thing that makes you go, oh, I know who this guy is now.
Right. It was cool. It's like, oh, if you're going to have that character, why not make him connected to the original? Why don't you make him... Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I like that. I think that's just smart. Let's see, what else? Obviously, the music. Let's see. Most of the I liked almost all of the acting. I thought the casting was great. So these are just broad things. They just all around general. They did a good job with that.
I want to talk about the acting, but before that, we were kind of just more talking about the overall feel and tone of it. Just something else I had for that was I liked the amount of brutality that was there, where it felt real enough. This was great. Maybe more thing to note, but there's someone in the audience behind us who was doing the whole like, oh shit,
yeah,
like really getting into it when someone died. So much fun.
Yep.
But like, it was just enough where like the gore, you felt like the weight of the deaths and like, oh my God. Like when it was
the brutality
it was done
of
well.
it.
Yeah. Like a standout one for me was when you see the face of like the car station attendant smashed in. Like it's already been done, but the jaw is just like,
it's pretty intense. I mean, I am not in general a big like gratuitous gore person, but to me this was sort of hitting just enough of that to be like
it's like how it works in a war film.
Yes, exactly. And it's evocative, but it's not gratuitous to me. And I think that's important to find. I mean, I wonder, it's like how many frames is too many frames to linger on, this smashed face, and I think they did it, whatever they chose, that worked for me. It was just enough, not too much.
They were in tune with that as a Halloween abstract thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's one of my notes is just gore worked for me. It was the right amount.
So you brought up the casting,
the
acting, the performances.
Yes.
Which I say, heck yeah, too.
I do too. Almost all around. But I'll caveat that in things that didn't work.
Okay, well, I'm curious to hear what that is. But I mean, I really liked that it was I can't think of another horror movie that's done this, but having the multi-generational, like all three women, like both as sort of equally main characters almost.
You just made me think of something that I need to put in here.
Because Judy Greer seemed like the mom or daughter, depending on who you're looking at. She was kind of raised to almost one of the main characters. It felt like, and I don't know. That was and then having them all like in the same room at the end, taking part in the final showdown.
Definitely.
It was great seeing them all.
Well, and I guess I can, trail off on that. Is that the right way of putting that? I'm going to something off of that.
Let's hear what you do off of it.
So this, I think, brings up a really big thematic aspect of this film. Because, when we talk about the original, a lot of the time you just in sort of the most basic way, you say, oh, one of the main themes is sort of just like teen sex is kind of the motivator that drives Michael Myers to go after people, and so you're maybe making some sort of larger comment
all because of that first kill that he committed, right?
And so you've got this underlying theme of like, teen sex is bad, and if you do it, you're gonna get killed. Right.
Well, that was never. You listened.
It's not explicit.
No,
but it's
even you talk to the original filmmakers. I'll get to. I was listening and some behind the scenes stuff. They were like, no, that was never.
Really,
that was never supposed. That's what
that's
everyone
just people pulled from.
That's what everyone picked up on, and then was like, and then turned into the slasher genre. They were never like, this is intentional or this is important to us.
That's cool.
Yeah,
because I feel like that's what people hone in on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, that's what it's that's what it's representative of is the fact that that's what people
and it spurred on this whole genre of that thing. But I think this movie, there's a specific moment where I was like, oh, there is a little bit of undertone commentary going on in this movie that is now. And it's talking about now, and I really like that. It's flipping that a little bit on its head, even if the first one, it was unintentional. It's kind of a sexist thing to be like, don't have sex when you're a teenager, and like kill the girls because they're having sex. It's like, fucking what the hell? So in this one, there's the moment when the goofy friend tries to make out with Allison, Laurie's granddaughter, and she rebuts him, and she's like, what the fuck, and then he gets killed. And I was like, oh, like we're dealing with a movie that has 3 generations of like strong women who are ultimately kicking ass. Like there's some good commentary on like just the state of the world and things that are important right now to a lot of people, and it's it's not shying away from that, really. It's like saying, yeah, fuck you, dude, who thinks, oh, and then he gives a lame excuse to be like, oh, I'm sorry, Allison, I was drunk, and no, I'm dumb. You know, it's like, fuck. So I think that's really good that they're aware, it's self-aware, and I think that's important, especially in a way, if their intention with the first one was not to make any sort of commentary on teen sex, and knowing that that's what came out of it, it's even better that in this one they're commenting on the complete other end of the spectrum, being like, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, what's really not cool is like trying to fucking force yourself on somebody. You know what I mean? Which in a way is even more of a deeper theme in this movie. It's like, why the fuck is Michael Myers stalking Laurie in the first place? You know what I mean?
Because I agree that's absolutely like a valid read on it, but like what I got from that more was sort of more like it's first coming from just writing the characters like well,
sure,
and writing them true. Because when I was watching
writing them in now,
right?
Like this is
exactly
it's very explicitly set in 2018 on the 30th and the 31st. So it's really just I think what you're probably getting at is that it's a matter of saying, how do real people in this day behave? Right.
But I mean, I guess I was just thinking, I don't see it as being as intentional as like, oh, how do we twist this, this sort of whatever.
Right. I'm not saying that they're trying overtly to make, broad commentary so much as just that they're aware of it. They're aware of the world we live in, and that there are overlapping themes.
I could just say it's written from just the standpoint of being like, all right, this is just how people are versus sort of like doing what our jobs are and what film critics do, what they do sort of after the fact. But as long as you make it like anyway,
but I don't think it's a accident. They're aware. And that's good. And they're not shying away from it. That's good.
I could just see being the thing where it's like, oh yeah, even though they're aware of that in general, someone points that out to them. It's like, oh, was this scene kind of a play on? And they were like, no, we just,
it just is what it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but yeah.
What else you got?
Well, we were talking about the performances and just specifically had. I mean, Scream Queen. Jamie Lee Curtis brought it and like earns that title for life, I think, with this, because what like she brought like the gravitas to it that elevated it from just like kind of the original and even like the sequel. I think why people like it, or the original sequel Halloween 2.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually ever seen the sequel.
Well, it's great. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis like is great and brings it. And what am I getting to with this? But
in the second one, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I think in the first one, I'm pretty like whatever about her acting in the in the original.
Here's the thing, though. It's she's so likable in the first one, and I think does have a vulnerability, not a weakness, but like she's someone where we automatically are. Oh God, look behind you! Don't want them to die. That quality.
Yeah, so, it's like just a general, like anybody in that situation. It's just like we know more than she does. She's naive, not saying unintelligent. She's just naive of what's going on.
So now this one where she's had 40 years of post-traumatic stress, from the situation. Well, I just thought she gave such a good performance where, like, when she yelled something that was just like, get over here, he's coming. Like, it wasn't just the ravings of a mad woman. It was someone who had been just deeply hurt.
Yeah.
You could feel that. And so when it also had the shots where it was like her being so good with the guns and everything, it wasn't, even though it was like, oh, cool, that's awesome seeing her do that, it wasn't just this, like, surface level, oh, she's so, like, badass, da-da-da. She had that Laurie Strode vulnerability that you could see who had been damaged and hurt, and that's where it was coming from.
Totally.
She played that, like, so well for me, and made me really like her, because I could still see... And I was wondering, I'm like, Laurie Strode, kind of who was she? Who is she? Like, I don't get it. It's like a classic character or whatever, but like I could key into that who she was, and thanks to her showing that vulnerability again in this one.
I totally agree. Let's see what else. I I really like, well, I guess I covered the sort of the lore of the first one and like honing in on things that work and moments like that. For example, you know, the little nods, like when Laurie gets pushed over off the roof and onto the ground.
Yeah.
You know, and Michael
goes,
sees her down there, and then he like gets distracted, and then he looks back again, and she's gone. It's like, that's great, of course. And we all know that's what you're going to do with that, but it's so pleasing to get little things like that. It's a really interesting thing to me that you can do. There are times when movies do those exact, you know, like replicas of moments, and it doesn't work, where you're like, oh God, like give me a break. But this, for some reason, there's something about this one that just hits the right amount of that. It's even when you know it's coming.
It was so tied to her getting her revenge finally.
Maybe that's what it is. It's like, we know that she lived that life. It's not like we're seeing new characters be put in situations that old characters that they didn't even know about were in, and having them have that exact scenario play out. That makes no sense, right? It's a little incongruous. It's like, why would a character that was disconnected from, you know, the original, whatever the original is, be like, let's say, for example, using the Star Wars analogy again, it's like referencing a trash compactor in the new ones is sort of loose, and like the new characters, like they should be like, this means nothing to me and who gives a shit. And it doesn't quite land. But when it's Laurie, knowing that the last time Michael fell off a roof and disappeared and doing the same thing, we're like, fuck yeah, we're getting the nice reversal, and we know that she's in on it.
Shoes is on the other foot. It's nice to like look at Michael Myers behind the mask and go like, yeah.
And they did this a bunch of times, right? There's the like when she's going up to the closet doors that are that same sliding
right with
closet
like the
doors.
Same wire coat hangers
yeah
too.
Exactly. Like now she's on the other side of that, she's the one who's going to open the door, and Michael's the one who's potentially hiding. Like, great, that's great. And
it was cool because it also still worked where like I was scared for her because he could just bust out of that, which I guess segues into there was a couple promise of the premises that I thought this delivered. And speaking of her looking for him at the end, this totally delivered on what I said earlier, the versus setup of like, as soon as it was both of them in the house together and you're like, okay, she's got like her dozen guns, how is it going to be sort of evenly matched? But as soon as they're both inside, which played as realistic for me, him getting inside,
you know, I liked there was something about the design, the look and design of the house in sort of, I think this movie is really full of very smartly constructed duality things. Where in the original, you're in a very like white picket fence house, and the walls are white and the banister is white, and like, you know, it's crisp and clean and whatever. In this one, now we're in the sort of reversal of that. We're not in a neighborhood. We're out in the middle of the woods. We're not in this like Susie Homemaker perfect little house. We're in this like rustic, dark, kind of almost damp feeling. Everything is brown wood.
Yeah, which is interesting to look at as the repercussions of Michael's evil just continuing to seep through.
It just goes to show you how important and how well you can do to focus in on these details and say, stay away from white walls. But you know what I mean? Like, to make those artistic decisions, like design decisions, I think the casual viewer isn't going to pick that apart in any intellectual way.
To do exactly that, it kind of for me feels like what's satisfying in the Nightmare on Elm Streets when they go inside the dream world to fight Freddy. This is like, after 40 years, Laurie Strode has put herself in that kind of like the land of evil and despair.
Right.
It's like she's meeting Michael Myers kind of on his level. So it is kind of his own created hellscape when they're fighting each other.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's good filmmaking. Yeah. I mean, really, it means they thought about it.
It was cool. I liked I mean, it was a close quarters fracas that they had at the end. And and it was fun because each of them had their sort of moment where they were taking control. You know, it's like, oh shit, you know, she's being strangled, and this is the back and forth. Oh, he got his fingers blown off. Oh, right. But he's still coming at her. It was great.
Yep. Let's see what else. I like that we never see his face.
Yeah.
That's cool. We get his eye, just a little glimpse of the eye that she coat hangered in the first one.
Yeah. Which was already messed up in the first one. You do get a better look at his face.
That's right.
The
early on, yeah.
No,
that's right. At the end, right before he gets shot. Yeah. I like, just in terms of characters, I really like the little kid.
I know
that's being babysitting. I love. It's just that
you're talking about getting high.
I love that shit.
I could just see like him cracking up. Danny McBride.
Yes, that's exactly
the
right.
Producer writer on this.
Yeah. And I love the babysitter Vicky. I think she's fun and just like you can't not like her. I think she's just like fun and funny, and they like the two of them together have such a good like rapport and back and forth.
Remind me of the babysitter.
Yeah, exactly. I know, right?
I know. I was like, no, Vicky.
I really like the female reporter.
Yeah.
I don't know if she
knew what was up. She was cool.
Yeah. Like, again, casting women that are like, she didn't feel two-dimensional to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great. Like I've said this, I'm sure, a number of times before. I'm very tired of seeing
she was immediately the more
two-dimensional women.
Yeah, she was the more competent one between the two.
Thank you.
Journalists, podcasters.
Yeah.
Just, I think, how it would be played realistically. She's like, all right, money talks. That's why we got to do it.
Yeah. And I guess sort of off that, like, I really like the death. Specifically, I really like her and the other reporter's death. Yeah. And those are two of the, basically not the first, but they're the first of two people that we care about. Yeah. Right? Like, and that bathroom, man, there's something about grimy bathroom like fights that I love.
Oh, it was great when she's like crawling under the next stall and you know he can grab her. Yeah. And then like the guy gets in like one good hit on him, but then it's just like fruitless after that.
Man, I really liked that. And I was so bummed that she died.
Right?
You know what I mean? Which means they did something right in making us care enough about her for me to be like, that early on, to be like, oh no, fuck, she's dead. It's like, of course she's going to die. She's like,
I know, all
not
these
one of the three
main
characters.
Which that's kind of what I brought up earlier. Like what was making this, what worked for me in this was the amount of empathy that was built for each one.
Yeah.
Like every person, whereas like I was like, oh, they're dying. Oh, I didn't want to see it. But then again, I was like, of course they're gonna. That's why they're here.
Yeah,
that's why she has all these friends, because they're gonna die. I mentioned when I said the fracas at the end was delivering on the verses promise of the premise, and I had said there was two promises of the premises that they delivered on.
You need a popper stopper for that.
And the other one was during the middle of the film. This is like in the screenwriting terms, the very much the most fun and games segment, which was a long take of Michael Myers just going from one house to another, killing two people.
Yeah.
And it like started with, I believe, the little kid bumping into him in costume and having
that's
that,
right.
you know, that, or the cue, you know, there's just, that was a nod to the original, but it was fun because then it took Halloween to its extreme of like, you got all these extras, it's in the midst of Halloween, he's going in, he's hiding around, he's smashing a face in. It was great.
And I feel like this leaned in on that where the first one kind of missed it or skirted it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This one really makes you feel scared for the general public, right? Like there are many, many kids and trick-or-treaters and, you know, just like, and adults that are getting in costume and enjoying Halloween. And this dude is wandering around in the midst of that. Like he's basically walking through the crowd and they don't know. And that by itself is a very evocative and scary thing.
Exactly.
You know
I feel
everybody's at risk.
It's the thing that we projected on the original, but when you watch it, isn't actually there.
Yeah,
so here was their chance to do it better than ever, too.
And it's so good. there's a beautiful moment, which is, again, in sort of that same Save the Cat screenwriting terminology. The literal Save the Cat moment is reversed in this, where... so should I explain what that is? Okay, people know what that is. There's the moment after he ball peen hammers, or I guess it's just a regular hammer, the woman in her house in this same sequence. And he walks out and there's a baby crying, and he walks up and we all go, oh shit, he's gonna fucking kill that baby. Mm-hmm. And he just looks at it and moves on. That's sort of a reverse Save the Cat, right? It's letting us know that he's not completely...
It's not a reverse Save the Cat. That would just be a Save a Cat.
It is, but it's reverse in that it's the fucking bad guy who's doing it. So it's creating almost a sympathy for him subconsciously for us, where we go, oh, he's not that bad.
Yeah.
Right? Because normally you'd use that moment with a hero or an anti-hero and be like, oh, okay, well, at least he helped the old lady across the street, so we can get on board with him even if he does some shitty shit. We're still on board because we got this little human moment early on. And to see him do that is kind of a fucking middle finger to that technique. And I just think it's great. It's almost confusing for the audience,
right?
And it should be. It's unsettling. We go, wait, who?
It was
who
great.
Are we dealing
it muddled.
With now?
It like where we're if this whole time we're trying to pin down exactly where he's coming from, try to understand his psychology. It was just one more little like, that's information I don't know what to do with.
That's right. And that's the whole thing should be that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why?
Right.
We don't
need to know all this elaborate backstory.
And
blah,
there
blah,
isn't
blah.
an answer, and that's what's scary.
Right. Just make the hole. Dig us a bigger hole.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it even kind of happens again later on when he's in the cop car with Allison. That's the character's name, right? Okay, for a second I doubted myself. So he's in the car with Allison in the back seat, and he doesn't fucking kill her. He kills the doctor. Mm-hmm. And then he gets out. He just leaves her there.
Well, no, he didn't leave her there. She escaped when he became laser
that's right. He
focused.
got out.
He was like, my attention is on killing him right now.
You think, based on what we think we know of Michael Myers, that of course he's going to try and kill Allison because she's a part of the Strode family, right? Like, you have that kind of ingrained that his whole MO is go after Laurie, but it's not.
It made sense in this that he was just getting off and killing someone who'd been so close with him this whole time.
That's right.
That was a more big kill.
Well, and that's what I mean by I think it's doing a really good, or the filmmakers are doing a really good job of sort of keeping you a little bit like they're skirting your expectation. Of course you think he's going to kill her, but then he doesn't, and you're sort of like,
it's the fact that he could have immediately also turned to her, but it was kind of neat to see him get caught up in like, I'm going to go after this guy. This is where all my attention is at right now. And it worked.
And it adds to the what the fuck is his deal
right.
thing.
Why is he only giving him... Right, exactly.
Which, that's so compelling to constantly be going, What is his deal?
Speaking of that guy he kills, who was referred to in the film actually as New Loomis.
I know, I love that.
He's New Loomis. So the guy who replaced Loomis, Dr. Ranbir Sartain.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. That's why we call him New Loomis. I thought that was great and really worked for me, how the twist of him being bad, and I'm glad they didn't do more with it. I'm glad he got killed off.
Oh, me too.
Because like at first I was thinking like, I'm not crazy about him because he literally is just New Loomis. It just made me wish Donald Pleasance was still alive. Yeah. But then to find an opportunity of that, where being like, no, Loomis would never do that. But this random guy who I don't trust, but wanted to trust because he's New Loomis, he did this and took me by surprise and made me go crap when she's stuck in the back of the car because he did that. So that was cool. I liked that twist.
I'm with you. I'm so glad that it was a good and completely at least for me, an unexpected twist. And then they wrap it up.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. There was a moment when I thought, if the rest of this movie is new Loomis with the Michael Myers mask on, and that's like the reveal at the end that Laurie takes the mask off after killing him, and it's new Loomis,
or it was just trying to say some greater thing about Michael Myers he's not
in all of us.
Yeah, I'm like, I was so worried about that too, or that it was just going to be some kind of final thing of like new Loomis being a part of the final fracas and like holding someone hostage.
I would have hated that.
Me too. I was dreading all that, and I could see it happening, and another bit like no. But then I remember it's Danny McBride, and I just see him going like, no, fuck that, man, that's stupid. We got Michael Myers and her fighting, Like.
Yeah, I didn't actually look up who any of I basically looked nothing up going into this. I was I didn't even know who directed. I knew nothing. So I didn't know whose hands I was in, right? Like, I knew that people were saying largely that they thought it was really great and they loved it, but people say that about shit movies all the time. So there were moments of doubt for me, and I'm so happy that it ended up that we were in really good hands. Yeah. And they didn't take us down a shit path.
Right. When it was all going so well. I feel like we should keep going here. I just had a couple last little things that worked for me.
Yeah, I only
keep
have...
it going. So I loved the scene of when they come across the crashed bus and all the wandering patients. What worked for me about that was sort of like it has echoed something in the original.
Totally.
That imagery, but just that I like that we didn't actually get an explanation or see how it went down. That helped keep it very ominous, suitably ominous. I love that.
I totally agree.
Great.
The only other thing I have is as a moment, I love the what the fuck's her name? The daughter, not the granddaughter.
Oh, the daughter, not the granddaughter. Karen.
I love she's holding the gun in the basement up, and she's like, I can't do it, Mom. I can't do it. And Myers pops in and she goes, gotcha. It pays off the whole storyline of her and her mom's conflict. That she was put through the ringer as a kid to learn these survival techniques, and she rejected all of that and like moved away from her mom, or was moved by child services, and like they have this strained relationship the whole movie, and this one moment goes, yeah, but it was all worth it.
You're right.
And I fucking love that.
That was a killer moment.
It was awesome.
And there's that same guy behind us like, shoot her, man, shoot her. Like, just do it.
Yep. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I love that too. Okay, so very last thing for me that worked for me I have down was how, and you'll see I'm going to use this to transition to the next section. I liked how he wasn't confirmed dead in that I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? If, because I was wanting... This is what I'll get into what didn't work for me as far as like I was just wanting like, why not just make a great standalone film, whatever, they can kill him.
They'll never do it. They'll never do it.
But I'm like, oh no, yeah, wait, he's Michael Myers. He's not supposed... It wouldn't be Halloween film. Like, that is a tenant. That is an abstraction I was talking about of like, no, like what they did at the end credits and with his breathing.
Yep.
I was like frustrated at first, but then that when I thought about it more, I worked for me that he was not confirmed dead.
Let's move on.
He's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
So what didn't work for me coming off of that last one was how they didn't kill him. So that's different from how he wasn't confirmed
Ryan,
dead.
This is a thing that you seem to do every once in a while.
I've done it once before. I've done it once before.
It's your favorite bit.
Yeah. Well, what did I do it? I forget now.
I don't remember.
But
babysitter, I think you did it.
But this is more different.
Chirons.
Yeah, it was that. It was the babysitter chirons. But this one is different because what I just said did work for me was how he wasn't confirmed dead, which is different. More specifically, now what didn't work for me was how they didn't kill him. Those are different.
Yeah, I get you.
You see?
Okay.
Like, I still think it could have been done in such a... Like, I would have preferred the ending where in that final house burning down fracas, like, for some reason in the hullabaloo of it all, that they weren't able to get off a last shot because he was falling under the flames.
Oh, interesting.
You know, like it did not work for me that they should have, you know, I really think they should have, it felt like they were going for, and the movie was pushing for, with the cop being like, get out of my way, let me just shoot him now, I don't care if he's dead. Like, it was like, cool, the movie's smart and on board with like, we just gotta kill him, let's shoot him. And like, even her shooting his reflection, it was like, I don't care, just fucking shoot him in the head, make sure he's dead. So to sort of have it feel like it's more to them about this elaborate mouse trap, like just to burn him down and not watch him die, I'm like, no, I think they would do that and then try to shoot him. And I think it could have been done in such a way where just in the particulars of how it's playing out, they weren't able to get off the shot.
That's a good point. I can imagine, you know, constructing a secondary moment to the burning of the house down, and I think by leaving it the way they leave it, it almost undercuts Laurie's whole MO for this entire movie. Yeah, because theoretically, based on everything we've seen from her in this movie, she should wait for the house to burn down and then go back in and fucking make sure. You know what I mean? It's almost... And
then he's gone, presumably, is how the next one begins.
That's fine. But having her be like, this is not over until I've confirmed that it's fucking over.
Like, I wanted to see her, like, imagine where she's trying to go in to, like, get another shot off or to, like, shoot him and make sure he's not leave it up to the fire. Mm-hmm. And the daughter was like... or the granddaughter was like, you know, Mom, Grandma, you know, it's not, you're gonna die if you go back in there.
Yes.
And then so that way it was more like, no, she had to make that choice of like die following that obsession, which ruined her whole life too. And you can look at it.
That's interesting you bring that up, because that's kind of one of my big things that didn't work for me. Is there's I like the catharsis of like the trap and it paying off and it working and all of that, but I almost wanted a more dire moment between Laurie and Michael of like, she's going to die to kill him. And that never quite got to that point.
Yeah, you wanted her to be in that ultimate sacrifice moment.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe that's just my personal, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. That would have been tricky, because I felt like it could have been kind of contrived to force to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would have to be done skillfully. So, you know, maybe there wasn't, you know, a way that they could agree that would really, really hit that. But
yeah, I think it's kind of cool though that they took the route of not just like making this the final Laurie film. This is her big send off. Like, I like that she did live and just felt good.
And
good to see.
I'm not saying that she has to actually die in that moment. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I think I wanted to see her accept that it's okay if she dies, you know, in the act or in the attempt to kill him. That there's a moment where she has accepted that if this is going to end, she's okay with dying to kill him. Mm-hmm. And that and by, you know, she doesn't have to ultimately die. It's more seeing the character accept that. And it's kind of there, you know, she's putting herself out there and almost getting killed.
You're saying accept that she should die? Wait, sorry, can you clarify?
Okay, so what I mean is if they get into, you know, this sort of final battle moment where she has to make a decision that the consequences of which are very likely she's going to die. Mm-hmm. Even if she doesn't die, seeing the character accept that that's the decision that they're making.
I don't know, because I think that's where we were coming into the movie, though. I feel like she's already like, I'm going to do anything to do this. So I thought it was more the reversal of like, can we get her to not be willing to risk her life to, which she already has given her whole life over to this, to just like spend time with her family.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. I'm cool with it.
I liked we're on what didn't work for me.
just keep going on what did.
I did not like. Oh, did not work for me. This was a very specific scene moment that like felt like you see this all in lesser films. So it is a backhanded compliment to this film. But there is the scene, maybe I just missed a line or something, but I swear this is how it played out. When Michael Myers is on the loose for the first time again, Laurie rushes over to her daughter's house, her granddaughter's house, and says, and is trying to get her to leave the house, that it's not safe here.
Right.
That's not safe there. She says, there was a bus crash, da-da-da. And then Judy Greer goes, what are you talking about, bus crash? And never, I swear, at any point, maybe I missed it, Laurie actually says Michael Myers has escaped.
I agree. I don't think
just
they say
it just portrays her like she's just, completely a loon. And I got why Judy Greer kicked her out if she was that nanny. It never, and it was just so frustrating. I'm like, wait, you never actually followed through with that. You never say Michael is coming. And then in the Wikipedia, it was funny because I was so frustrated right that when I got to how it described that moment, it said, Laurie attempts to warn Karen of Michael's getaway, but she dismisses her concerns, which is just so like, it's so the exact way where it's like how they just maybe hoped people would notice was like, it's just a vague dismissing of concerns. I'm concerned. I dismiss you. Like, it's stupid. No, make her. Why wouldn't she tell her?
Well, you're sort of hitting on something that didn't work for me. I think there are things, specifically dialogue things that I felt were just could have been better. And unfortunately I don't have like a very specific example, but just I'm not sure if it's so much the dialogue itself or the delivery of the dialogue. Generally, I am of the opinion that when dialogue comes out weird, it's usually the writing that is the problem, not the acting. Especially with this cast, like they're all fine. You know what I mean? They know how to fucking act. So I don't blame them for those moments. I think there's something about some of the way the dialogue is constructed that just isn't kind of how people talk. And it maybe happened 4 or 5 times where I was like, that was
luckily a far cry from Insidious 4.
Right. That's the extreme where you're like, clearly this is fucking bad writing. It was only a few times, and it makes me tilt my head, go like, ooh, why was that weird? And what's going on? So there's a little dialogue stuff. But having said that, it made me think, man, when you watch the original, it's pretty loose writing. Like it's so I almost was like, they're kind of just doing maybe unintentional. Well, they're kind of matching tone.
It's good writing as far as the relationships and their core of who they are as people, but maybe just some of it's a little, there are moments. I mean, I'm speaking more to the original. I don't remember this new one, but moments where it's kind of like the setup punchline kind of exchange kind of dialogue.
I have one thing off of that too. I don't know if you noticed this, but early on there's 2 or 3 I thought pretty glaring ADR things.
I noticed one,
the mouth didn't match the word, right? It was the male reporter. I believe his mouth says, I talked to her, and they replaced talked with spoke. So you hear the word spoke and you see the word talked. And it was jarring. I was like, whoa, that was, aggressive. Like, why not just keep talked? What was wrong with talked? So
would have ruined the film.
Yeah, right. There were 2 or 3 right around that same like 5 or 10 minutes that I was like, oh, they must have had some sort of sound problem. Something just
feel like
happened,
just wanting a dialogue change.
Yeah. But it stood out, which is, oh well, unfortunate,
Hopefully
I guess.
To not more than 1% of the viewing public.
No. I'm sure not. Let's see what else. I have one big one.
Yeah. Wait, was this the acting one? Because
kind of.
You mentioned someone's performance.
Yeah, it's well. I have a small performance and I have a big performance problem.
What is it?
The small one is just the high school dudes. I just don't like them. I just don't think that they're great. In particular, the boyfriend. Actually, both boyfriends. I think that there's something maybe it's casting. I don't know what it is, but I just didn't think that they were landing where I thought they could have.
Oh, I thought they were good at being not totally likable, but just kind of like, but I get who they are.
Yeah, but you know what it is partially? I think that those three guys, the high school guys, Vicky's boyfriend, the comic relief guy, and Allison's boyfriend.
Yeah.
All three of them were leaning too far into caricature for me. Mm-hmm. Just not quite fully in, but just a little too far. Like, I guess I just didn't believe them.
I guess, I mean, that's where it felt to me like you have two, probably, Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, like 40-year-old men writing high school boys, where it's like they're kind of like getting a kick out of
that
them,
could be, yeah.
But you could tell it's their kind of projection.
Right. I was like, these guys don't exist in real life, Maybe they do.
It seemed more like younger versions of...
Sure.
Of who they were as kids versus...
Yeah, but I was fine. I got over it pretty fast. But the one that I did not like, it's kind of it's dual. It's writing and performance. Is the new Loomis leading up to his turn? Mm-hmm. He's super annoying. Like there's unnecessary dialogue where the cop is saying something and he's like off screen in the background, like repeating it or like chiming in. And I'm just like, why is that even in this movie? And once the twist happened, I'm like, oh, I guess it makes sense sort of from if you step back a little bit that he's kind of winding up, that he's psychotic. And but in the moment I was like, I fucking hate this actor and I hate what they're doing and I hate that he's new Loomis and I hate, you know what I mean? I was like, he sucks and he's kind of unnecessary and I'm not into the performance. And then he turns and I'm sort of like, oh, okay, I get why they did it, but it didn't sit terribly well with me.
I want to talk about more things of note.
Oh, okay, cool. So other than that, let's see.
I mean, my last one was some of the I'm trying to remember some examples, but like hyper kinetic, intense kind of like filmmaking things, like were like very flashy flashbacks. It wasn't that bad for me, but like an example I can think of was the first one of the beginning where it was just like this build of like, look at the mask, say something, whatever that was.
Oh yeah.
And, like, da 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 da, and it's like boo 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 boo. That was kind of cool as far as what the context was.
Yeah.
It was, as they say, a bit much.
Yeah, it was a little much.
Just a bit much.
But I also think
that moment. No, but that moment I was liking. That wasn't so egregious for me. But there were just other. I forget what they were now. Just flashbacks or moments or scenes where it kind of just did the like.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, back when.
Yeah, I get you. I didn't really, I mean, I can barely even remember any of them, so it obviously didn't bother me. You reminded me of something that I should have said in what worked. I guess I kind of said it in the duality stuff, but there's a couple really good shots of like in the hospital, you see the cameras and the barbed wire, and then when we meet Laurie, the first thing you see are cameras and barbed wire, and it's like, I thought that was cool. Sorry, I'm backtracking.
What did not work?
So in the end, I guess this is just me kind of anticipating what could happen. And then the filmmakers did something else, right? Oh shit, they didn't do what I thought they were going to do. That's fine. It's really not even a criticism. But there were a couple times when I thought, ooh, I would have liked it maybe more if they had integrated Allison running from the woods. What ends up happening, she just runs through the woods until she gets to the house and she gets in the house. And I felt like there's a missed opportunity there. And I don't know exactly what it would be.
I thought we should have seen him chasing her a little or something.
Yeah, like, Or
that was actually an example which he runs into those mannequins and goes like,
Oh,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, whoosh, blah, 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 like mannequins, scary.
yeah. I guess there's a part of me that was anticipating, because Laurie and Karen don't know where Allison is, it gives you the opportunity to have an unexpected thing happen when Allison shows up, where they mistake her for somebody, or she gets in the way of, them getting
Right.
to Michael because she's entering into the scene, right? And unexpectedly.
Well, I think they could have just like, if they had just not either done more with it, like you're saying, or just not shown her, like we see her running off from the car, and then she shows up later at the house. We know that's where she was headed.
Right, it adds nothing to the story to continue to see her running aimlessly through the
except
woods.
to see her get scared by mannequins.
Right, and even that doesn't pay off. We never get back to those mannequins, right? Like,
No, that's what I was saying. That's his example of like, I was like, that kind of moment.
I mean, yeah. So, I thought it could have. There was an opportunity, maybe, but whatever. It's
anything
fine.
else that didn't work for you? Could we move on to things of note?
No, that's pretty much it. I kind of have this note about like the Hightower surprise, where it's like you have a plan and then you try and execute the plan and it fails. I didn't feel like that quite happened, and maybe that again was a missed opportunity, kind of in the same vein of Allison. Maybe Allison coming back could have caused the Hightower surprise, like them capturing Michael, to fail. And it just didn't. It kind of was like ultimately the plan worked, even though there was struggle.
Yeah, it was satisfying because we didn't know exactly how it was going to play out.
Right. But I thought there was some weirdness with the logic of the plan, in that like when she's going from room to room initially and then closing the room when she, like, if you're trying to trap somebody and you're wondering if they're in a room and you can lock that room down, why even look into the room? Just fucking lock the room. And then maybe he's in there.
No, because then they wouldn't have been able to get him to the basement to burn it down.
But the whole house burns down. Every room.
No, but I mean, they specifically, part of what I got was about part of the trap was specifically getting him down there to get those.
Okay, I can see. That makes more sense. I get
it was
you.
A cage.
It's so that they're literally closing off.
It wasn't a prison. It was a trap.
Yeah, they're creating a pathway for him to get downstairs. Okay, I just think that it didn't translate logically in the moment. But yeah, I can get on board with that.
How about it? Things of note.
Let's do it.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
Oh, well, I just mentioned one for me, new Loomis, something about him. What were you saying? Yeah, you didn't like him, his performance, kind of thing. But I was more just kind of getting hung up on how he sounded exactly like old Loomis. Like, why get someone who kind of like, he like really was new Loomis in that sense. He talked the same, Michael Myers, and it just only got more confusing for me because at the beginning, like, you hear a voice and you're like, oh, that's Loomis.
Yeah.
But then you're also seeing this new guy and you see him talk.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and yeah, I apparently they did cast a sound-alike comedian to voice Loomis. I thought it was just,
interesting
old tracks or whatever.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But it just got all that much more confusing when it was like, wait, new Loomis also sounds like him, and I think they were both in that scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was noteworthy for me. It was just kind of like my brain figuring out like, what, like, why does he have to sound exactly the same?
I have one. I don't know if you caught this, but one of the essential things, and I think a film technique that has now become, the slasher film sort of quintessential camera move, is a like handheld POV shot, right? Where it's like in the first Halloween, Michael's standing outside of the first babysitter's house, I believe, and then we get him stalking the house, but it's a POV shot. You don't see him, right? It's just his POV. And it's handheld, and it is quintessential. We associate this with slasher films, right? It's the slasher film camera sort of trope. They do not use that in this movie at all, except, well, they don't use it as a POV shot at all, ever in this movie. So they completely got rid of that thing. They used that one time, the handheld follow shot when Allison gets to the house. There's only one time, and maybe we think in that moment that Michael could be behind her, but he's not. And it is maybe a 4-second shot, and that's it. That's the only time they use that shot in this entire movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I thought, holy shit, like the thing that defines in a lot of ways slasher film technique, at least, is not in this movie.
That was smart. I think it would have been too much if they had.
No, I'm fine with it. That's why it's thing of note for me, because it didn't affect it. I just was like, oh shit, look at that, they didn't do it.
So
cool.
That comic relief friend, I guess we referred to him as.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was kind of funny, where I could tell that, kind of like what I already said, that he sounded like Danny McBride's voice coming through. I could just see that.
Yeah.
As that. Anyway, that was funny. And then so two acting shout outs, I guess character people actors. The PJ Souls, who is Linda in the original. The one is totally was her catchphrase, who apparently John Carpenter had a bit of a crush on, and that's why they think she was cast. That was one person. I think Deborah Hill's guess. So she was in she was in the original Halloween, and then I also recognize her from Carrie, of course. And Stripes. I watched a lot as a kid growing up. Anyway, she's in it. You probably recognize her. But the one, Tim, that got me very excited was who played the father or husband or son-in-law, depending on how you look at it. Ray. It's played by Toby Huss, who you knew somehow. Tim had told me before this, like, hey, I see Toby Huss around. I had not mentioned
I know
Toby Huss before.
I know Toby Huss from a show called Halt and Catch Fire, which I love.
Weird. I've never heard of that.
And he's been around forever.
I know him from one of my all-time favorite TV shows, and this is why I'm so excited, Adventures of Pete and Pete. He played Artie, the strongest man in the world.
Wow.
And you can hear him in the restaurant scene. They kind of did it kind of like, because I was listening to him, it was kind of a bad edit, but where he's trailing off what they were talking with before.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of goes into like his
voice,
which can also be heard when he played Elaine's boyfriend. The Wiz is what he went by in Seinfeld.
Oh, Jesus.
Where he was like I'm the Wiz, like electronics store owner advertiser.
That's hilarious. He lives in my neighborhood.
That's so awesome.
And he, there's a grocery store, Albertsons, like 3 blocks away that I walk to, and I just see him in there every once in a while. And I want to be like, dude,
I'm telling you,
whatever.
He gets it and is probably friendly with it because of Adventures of Pete and Pete. And
maybe
if you told him it was from this other show that you knew him, I'm sure he'd be elated and delighted.
No, he's great.
Toby.
The only other thing I have things of note is just like I said, I went in not knowing who wrote or who directed or anything this, and man, good job. Those dudes are awesome. David Gordon Green, the director, was looking up his IMDb.
I still want to see Your Highness. I haven't seen that.
And man, I mean, I really I don't know what it is. I guess I thought other people had directed movies that this guy has directed, which is kind of shitty on my part, I guess. Like, my bad. But things like Pineapple Express,
which I revisited recently. I liked it more.
I was surprised, basically, and pleasantly surprised at some of the stuff that he's worked on, and it makes sense that this is as good as it is, based on the stuff that he's done in the past. So good job, dude. You rock.
Can we move to our recommendations then?
We sure can. Oh, wait, no, we can't. I have a cobweb continuity.
God damn.
It's 2 seconds long. The floors in the house are tile, but when they're in the basement, they're shooting up through wood slats.
I noticed that, and I thought that was an intentional, like,
I think
like something that she did to, like, make it seem like that there wasn't anything underneath.
I think oh, that's interesting. I think the conceit maybe, and it's just a matter of how it was filmed and like sort of which room we thought he was in when she was shooting up at him.
Mm-hmm.
The kitchen is most certainly tiled, but I think the living room is wood, so who gives a shit,
This
right?
was supposed to be, I'm looking at our map here, Tim. This was supposed to be in what did not work section.
I'm so sorry.
Not our things of note section.
It up. But I got over it.
Keep an eye out, people.
Yeah, let me know.
Let's see if it's another. Let's keep an eye out. Never mind. Enough with that. All right. Well, recommendations. I said I had an apropos recommendation, and I'm gonna listen to the last episode now that I've seen the new movie. But there's been a wonderful podcast all about behind the scenes and making of Halloween called Halloween Unmasked.
Cool.
And it's very, very well done. Gets into the history of the original, its repercussions, does an overview of the sequels and everything. And the last episode it seems like it was on the new film, so I'm going to listen to it. I recommended that. Check it out, Halloween Unmasked.
Cool. I recommended a podcast as well. You said that was a podcast, right? Yeah. Called Dr. Death. It's real twisted, but it's good and it's short. I think it's only like 10 episodes.
I think you were telling me about it. What's it about?
It's a doctor. Well, it's what do you call that? A spinal surgeon. How do you call this? Spinal surgeon, something like that. Basically, neck doctor, right? Like, but surgeon, who was a fucking maniac and like suffered from bad like narcissism, like major problems, and started essentially faking his way through surgeries and fucking killing people. He killed like 2 or 3 people. He just fucking botched their surgeries purposefully and like paralyzed a bunch of people. He fucked a bunch of people up. And the podcast sort of dives into the sequence of events and like where he came from and why the fuck he did what he did. And it's dark, but very good. And it's a quick one. I think it's only 10 episodes, so maybe less, might be 7. So it's good though. Check it out.
Cool. All right, so for next week.
Oh, yeah, for next week, we are going back in time quite a ways.
Furthest than we've ever gone. So I'm excited. 1934. And this is one that I've seen before.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it. I think I watched it film school era. So it's like we kind of try to have that general rule of like we haven't seen it or it's been long enough. But I think there's a couple in the future we're letting slip through for Tim that he's just excited to talk about.
Yeah.
This is one that I really want to revisit and be able to talk about. The Black Cat.
Yeah.
With Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi together.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this, and
I think I know it because we watched it in a film class of mine called High Low film class.
Oh, interesting.
Which, you get the name.
I do, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
until then, thanks for listening to us talk about a new Halloween film. How about that?